and welcome to Two Words Wolves Pod. I'm Ryan Eichten, and with me is Leo Sun. Leo, how you doing?
Doing great, man. I made a good business decision. I had some company over this weekend, and on Saturday, I was like, "Hey, it's an early tip, for the Wolves are playing the Pistons." And I saw the injury report, and I was like, "You know what? Why don't I be a good friend and not just sit there and be just a complete it's couch potato and watch a game, and let me just focus on the friends that we had over." So I didn't get to see the game live. I went back and watched a condensed game of it on League Pass. But again, smart business decision by me to miss that game and then be able to catch this Mavs game where Io and Ant came back. So I feel like I got the good end of that pair of games there.
Yeah, absolutely. Saturday matinee game against Detroit. Wolves were missing Ant, Jaden, and Ayo, and that was just too many guys for them to offensively. They only score 87 points, pretty brutal. And then Monday night they whoop up on the Dallas Mavericks. Dallas had most of their guys in there, including Cooper Flag, and the Wolves. The Wolves beat them down in impressive fashion. Obviously, the Mavs are not necessarily a good team, but the Wolves haven't had many 30-point wins this season, where down the stretch of the second half, the margin was not in doubt.
Yeah, I mean, the Mavericks, yes, they did have Cooper Flag out there, but hey, you have to consider, Ryan, they're missing Luka Doncic, they're missing Anthony Davis, they're missing Kyrie Irving. No, but I mean, they were missing Wolves killers, and I feel like Najee Marshall always plays well against the Wolves, and PJ Washington, as we know, is a thorn in our side. So they were missing a couple of their rotation guys, but yeah, I mean, I don't think the Mavs have any interest in really winning any games at this point. If anything, they really are just motivated to try and get Cooper Flag back into contention for Rookie of the Year, but I think it's a little too late for that ship as well, too.
Yeah, absolutely. It looks like Con Knuppel, which the Wolves will see at the end of this week at home at Target Center. So that'll be it. That'll be a fun game in the span of a week. We'll see the top two Rookie of the Year votes getters. But yeah, let's dive into kind of what's happening in Wolves land this week. And the first kind of bad news is Jaden McDaniels is out for at least a little bit here. Some knee inflammation as well as a bone bruise in his left knee. The Wolves have determined that he's week to week. So that'll be something to monitor. That's all the information we have. So we don't know. Week to week could mean like literally in the week and he plays the last couple games of the regular season, or week to week could mean further than that. John Krasinski did tweet out that like the hope is, or the expectation is that he'll be ready for the playoffs in about 19 days. So that's kind of at the minimum. The Wolves need to continue to be in the top 6 so that they don't have to play in a play-in situation with Jaden McDaniels. Obviously, they're up more than 4 games on that, so likely that they'll be able to do that. But the first topic here, when he does return, the howl or foul here is, especially given his performance tonight, should Ayo Dosunmu join the starting lineup above Dante DiVincenzo when everyone is healthy?
I'm saying foul for that. We're kind of jumping the headline here. Ayo Dosunmu hit a triple double, national triple double against the Mavericks here on a Monday night, and he was outstanding all over. He was clearly the best player on the court on both teams, and that's considering even with Ant returning to the lineup and Julius having a good Julius game. And so, but the reason I'm saying foul for that is less to do with Ayo, but more to do with my concern about the bench with the Wolves. Naz Reid is clearly struggling right now. He has not been playing well ever since last couple games. In this last 3 games, he was shooting 30% from the field and under 20% from 3, and he did not look any better tonight either. He hit a kind of garbage time 3 and a couple easy little dinkers and dumpers there at the end, but he still finished short of 40% from the field and 1 of 3 from 3-point land today, so or 2 for 6. So it's tough because if Naz is struggling, the bench needs so much scoring juice that they thought that maybe they were going to get from TJ Shannon early in the season, or maybe a prayer of a chance with Rob Dillingham. And I think if you're bringing Ayo to the starters, and it's like you're really gonna have to stagger those minutes with the bench. And Dante has been playing as good as he can as well too, even in that Detroit game where most of the team struggled. I mean, he didn't shoot great from the field, but he did, hit a good amount of shots. He scored a lot for the Wolves, and he was really great today. I mean, today was a vintage Dante game where, especially in that third quarter, he hit 3 threes in a row. The game was never really in doubt. They were up double digits, but he really helped extend that out to close to that 20-point range there. And, as you know, Dante does so many intangibles. He's a different type of player than Ayo. I mean, yes, they're both point of attack hounds, get their hands dirty, get rebounds and, hit some threes. But Ayo is definitely much more of an individual creator, which I feel like we need off the bench. And so, I think Ayo at the end of the day, though, should play close to starter minutes, regardless if he's starting or coming off the bench right now. He's really proven that when he's out there, he is going to be productive and he's going to be a valuable part of this team and their long playoff run, hopefully.
Yeah, I agreed with you with Foul that he should be in the healthy starting rotation just because I think he can be just as effective coming off the bench. And he's been starting lately in the games he has played just because Anna's been out and now Jaden's out. But I think the other main thing is like there's just no need to rock the boat. Earlier in the year, I can't remember which game, but Dante was asked about potentially coming off the bench theoretically, and he very much did not like did not like that question. So I think that's almost as big of a part of it. It's like Dante's been starting all year and he's been solid. And so even if you kind of believe like, well, this lineup would be better with Dante here or Ayo there, it's like I think that is outweighed by just like there's no need to shake up something that's working, which is Dante in the starting lineup. That said, though, Ayo Dosunmu has just been incredible since the Wolves acquired him. Like any player, like it's obviously taken time to like hit the ground running with your new team, but like I felt like he's picked that up as quickly as any player can. Like just where to find his spots, how to get like where he can within this team provide value, and we're seeing it all over the court. Like you mentioned, like today against the Mavs, 18 points, 15 rebounds, 12 assists, a triple double, obviously. And along that, 3 steals and only 1 turnover. So just an all around great performance. He led the team in plus minus with plus 30. And it makes me think and try to hesitate from like thinking to pass the playoffs to the offseason, but like it's just they're gonna be it's gonna be the number one priority, I think, in the offseason is to re-sign Ayo Dosunmu. And they'll have like basically not technically, but they'll basically have the right of first refusal. Like I think like they'll have the opportunity to pay Ayo the most, and that's kind of the trend we've seen lately in the league as free agents don't really switch teams as much anymore because of all the cap rules. And so the Wolves will have like the inside track to get him, but at this point it might take a fair amount of money. And I just think for the playoffs, like he's going to be such a value for them coming off the bench, starting or playing like down the stretch of certain minutes, certain rotations. It's just an X factor. The type of player the Wolves have been missing the entire season since they lost to Kiel. And I like comparing their games. I like what type of their player type. I don't think is really all that necessary, but like just like another like a wing or guard off the bench that can get you some points and defend it at a relatively high level. And Ayo has provided that since he has gotten here, and something that the team has desperately lacked this season is like just like every night, same effort, same intensity, same sticking to the game plan type of stuff. And you see that when he gets the ball and just pushes the pace, gets to the rim. Those explosive plays where he's just like blowing by people in transition are so awesome, and really the type of player the Wolves haven't had in a long time.
Yeah, one of my group chats for the Timberwolves, they had mentioned like they missed a game, but they were like, "Wait, is the box score right? Like, did Ayo really have that many rebounds?" And he had 15 rebounds. In case you didn't see the box score yet, and a lot of those rebounds weren't just like, "Oh, they just kind of like fell to him," or they were long rebounds, or he was the only guy there. Like he skied for in traffic in the paint for a lot of those rebounds, and so I mean, I think that's just a testament to he's not going to have a triple double every game.
For
He's
sure.
not going to. This is kind of the top end of what we're seeing from Ayo and what he could do. It was all on display on both ends of the court. But I think the fact that he can attack and produce and be effective and affect winning in so many different levels other than just scoring is big. Because you look at a guy like Nas Reed. It's like, okay, well, he's going to get you buckets. He might provide some, weak side defense, on chase down blocks or whatnot. You look at Bones Highland, where it's like, you're going to get probably scoring for him on a good night. He might get a sneaky couple deflections here or there, but he's not great on the defensive end. And so, Ayo splits that difference, but he does both very well. So yeah, absolutely. I'm curious to see. I think if the Wolves are looking at the problem of, do we have enough money, do we have enough money to afford Ayo in the season? Then that means something probably went really right in the postseason, which is a good problem to have, right? Like, you want to have the problem of like, okay, well, now we have to afford this guy who played really, really well for us in the playoffs. So, we'll see what happens here. But again, absolutely, like, he was just amazing in that game today.
Yeah, and the type of, if you're going to beat Oklahoma City, like, I just like the type of guy that you're going to need. Like, that type of team's just going to throw wings and wings of just every type of player at you. And so, if something with Julius isn't working, Rudy not, whatever, like, that's another type of guy that you can throw for a team that's been thin in terms of rotation depth this year. They found that in Ayo, and again, too early to talk about this stuff, but like, it makes me think of, like, now Dante becomes a little bit more disposable in a trade, where, like, previously, if you were to trade Dante, it'd be like, well, that's just too much offense and shooting that you're missing. And now with Ayo, like, you can think about taking Dante, pairing him with another contract, and going after like a better player that fits the mold better. So, yeah, like, and then like the Rob Dillingham point of it, where they obviously swung and a miss with that transaction, giving away a first round pick and a pick swap. Well, if Ayo can become the player that they were hoping Rob Dillingham could become, now you're not, maybe you still, like, if you play like the mental game of, well, what if we just traded a first round pick for Ayo? That wouldn't be so maybe if you still overpay in that sense, but like, you've salvaged a lot of the value that I feel like you lost when you swung and a miss with Dillingham. And that's just so incredibly important for a team that is, in terms of draft picks, asset strap, like the Wolves have been since the Gobert trade.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens in the offseason. There are going to be a lot of moving parts. But either way, yeah, I mean, having something, like you said, restoring that bin of assets is only going to be helpful. So, Ayo wasn't the only one that, played well tonight. Obviously, we had the return of Anthony Edwards as well, too. And so this was Anthony Edwards' first game back after a 6-game layoff. He scored 17 points with 4 assists. And so our next topic here, Ryan, is how or foul, was it an encouraging return to the lineup for Anthony Edwards?
Yeah, I personally thought so. Aside from the the first minute of the game where he wasn't out there starting, he Finch and himself both said that he was in the bathroom pregame. So that's a fun little pregame quirk. I was kind of ready to, I don't know, like, there's been a lot of unprofessional stretches for this team this year, and kind of where it felt like their attention to detail has waxed and waned. So I found it a little bit annoying that the day that Ant comes back, he's not even fully ready to come back. But between the reference of the bathroom and just how the game ended up playing out, where they won by 30, I think I would feel silly kind of really harping on that aspect of this game. But I thought athleticism wise, I thought Ant looked solid, looked like himself, maybe 90% of himself. Maybe there's like a missing 10% that by the next game or next week, like, he'll have that back. Wasn't really worried about like the injury nagging him, as far as I could tell. And then I thought the way he played within the flow of the game was really encouraging. Again, when he kind of isn't on, when he plays more minutes or gets his feet under him, maybe this will change. But like, I just thought he picked his spots well. I think that seemed like the game plan wasn't to feature him as like the 1A offensive piece that like he is on a normal basis, which makes sense. But I just thought, like, didn't force it, wasn't like dribble like he can kind of sometimes get into. It's like when the ball swung to him, he took a shot, and obviously some of those are like those step back shots or contested shots or in the post. Like, all that was great. I thought it was a solid performance. It, like, the worst thing he could do is like get in the way, gunk up everything. And I thought like his gravity opened up things for other people. He finishes with 17 points, 7 of 13 from the field, 4 assists, just like a solid night overall. And just more so that like the ball didn't stick. And that's the most important part about like the Wolves offense with both Ant and Julius on the lineup is like the ball can't just die with those guys where they're just dribbling, trying to get their own spots. And I thought Ant especially did a good job in his return tonight.
Yeah, I agree with you. We got pretty much everything we wanted to see from Ant in this game. You mentioned the crazy step back, spinning 3-point shots. He had a huge dunk on Cooper Flag today. He also had another soaring one as well too. And so I'm a little bit more curious on how Ant's going to look against. I hate to say this, but a real team, a team that's not tanking, a team that's not missing, multiple starters. And so this felt a little bit more like a G League assignment game for Ant, where he got to come in and just kind of play against subpar opponents. And so, I mean, he did what he was supposed to do. Now, he gets a very physical Detroit team on Thursday as the next game. And so that'll be, I think, really a good true test to see, how back is Ant really and how much of a difference is he going to make. So I think as I was watching him out there, I just kind of kept watching, like, okay, how is his gait? Like, how is he moving? Is he kind of, limping around a little bit? And like you say, he looked good. I will say on my algorithm, I don't know why this has popped up quite a bit on my Instagram and YouTube like algorithms. There's this one short that I've seen that's like comparing how like Dwayne Wade and LeBron James and a lot of these like long time future Hall of Fame players, like athletic guys, were dunking, and then they're showing them kind of going up with two hands or hanging on the rim a little longer, basically landing on 2 feet, and then they cut to Derrick Rose and he's going up for these crazy dunks and he's just like landing full weight, full force on like one leg, and he's kind of doing that a 1-2 on the way down off like one leg on his knee, putting so much pressure. And so every time Ant went up for a dunk and he landed off one leg first, I'm like, oh gosh, like I think I still had that in my head a little bit. And so hopefully that's not going to be a thing for him, knock on wood. But yeah, he did look healthy. He did look good, and he did, I think, as good as anyone could have hoped he would have looked in just limited minutes the first game back.
Absolutely. Let's talk about his minutes in that game. He plays 23 total minutes. It was basically 6-minute stretches each time. It was the first 6 minutes of the first quarter, the first 6 minutes of the second quarter, first 6 minutes of the third quarter, and then the final 6-minute stretch was like the last 2 minutes of the third quarter plus the next 4 of the fourth quarter. Obviously, I think that was a plan coming into the game. I'd imagine I'm sure they felt like they could win this game like they did going away, so that there's no reason, especially at this point of the season, to push them. So the howler foul is should the Wolves continue to limit Ant's minutes these final 7 games after tonight?
Yeah, I'm going to say howl on that. I do think that they need to continue to monitor that and not push too far ahead. I mean, the Wolves right now are super banged up. We already talked about Jaden McDaniels. I kind of mentioned a little bit about Nas and him and his recovery right now. And Ayo just came back and, obviously looked good. But, you don't want to play with fire right now. I was getting a little bit antsy when I was watching in the fourth quarter. Now, Ant was not in the game, but many of the starters were still, or rotation players were in the game with just about over 6 minutes left. And the Wolves are up 30. And I was like, get him out. Like there's no need, Finch. Like pull the plug. And so I just don't really want to play too much with like Ant, going into the mid-high 30s right now. Obviously, every win matters. You do want to get Ant back up into condition for when, obviously in the playoffs, he's going to have a huge minute load. So you don't want him to be not have his cardio up to speed on that. But yeah, I think they need to take it really slow and, work his way back in. So I do think they should manage it.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I went Howell as well. I will add, like, they know far more about this injury, obviously, than we do. And so, like, I always kind of, like, when we're talking about limiting players' minutes who are obviously, in Ant's case, is ready to be on the floor, I'm always kind of like, well, if they feel like he's 100%, like, there's no, like, then he should just play, right? But I think if there's any sort of hesitation, and I think we'll talk about the standings later, but given the standings, there's also not a huge push to push them. I don't think, like, we'll talk about it later, but the standings are what they are at this point. You can hold off Phoenix for the 6th seed without him if you had to. So I agree with you. I think, like, any game, if he shouldn't really play the rest of the regular season, a game above 32 minutes, I would say would be like the max. Like, it just, and that's probably true for every player. Like, the goal right now, it'd be nice to get X seed or whatever, but like, it's so much more important, especially because like the 3 through 6 seeds are especially like locked into their own little group. Like, there's no need to push anything, and just getting to the finish line healthy at this point in the season is probably like the number one goal.
Yeah, I think we say this now, but it'll come down to like the final game of the season. It's like if the Wolves win this game, they will get home court advantage as a 4 seed in the first round. We're gonna just mash that amp button. Like the Wolves are down 5 in the fourth quarter. We're like Ant's at 30 minutes. Like nah, just play him. So again, it'll be case by case, and like you said, we got to believe the coaching staff to know what's best for his health and manage that the best they can. And it's always a guy that tries to play through stuff for better or worse. So sometimes like you gotta hope that the coaching staff and the health staff and training staff will know that, okay, well, Ant, like, yes, sure, you say you can play through it, but we cannot have you playing less than 100% come the playoffs. So yeah, we'll see what happens moving on. It's going to be a really close race. I think if Ayo's hitting a triple double every night, then yeah, okay, yeah, go ahead and play less than 30 minutes. I think you'll be all right.
Yeah, it's also important to note for Ant is that he does have to play in all of these remaining games to be eligible for All NBA, and I have to imagine like that's an important thing. Assuming like he was tonight, good to go. Like they're gonna get him into these games. He only has to play 20 minutes, and you can actually play 2 games of 15 minutes for them to count. If people remember, he was in that really early season Indiana game. He was pulled. That game ended up not counting towards All NBA because he only played I think 3 minutes. So like if he plays 20 plus minutes in every game, and then the last game of the season against New Orleans, if like the Wolves are locked into whatever seed by that game, I watch out for this. I'm kind of calling it a week and a half early. There's a good chance that Ant's going to play like exactly 15 minutes in that game and be like the only starting player out there, assuming like if they are locked into whatever seed. Those last game of the seasons can kind of get wonky fast, but like Ant's going to need to play 20 minutes to get his what I think will be a second team All NBA position. What is it, the third straight year he's been at that spot? So
well, shoot, at this rate, I mean, other players falling off. I mean, he might even make first team. I mean, we'll see how the games played ends up. But yeah,
that's gonna be tough. It's that last first team spot. I think Ant will end up missing too many games just because a lot of these other guys will end up with more. Obviously, Cade doesn't. I don't know if Cade Cunningham is gonna end up making that barometer, but like it'll come down to, assuming Ant plays the game, it'll come down to, I believe, him, Jaylen Brown, maybe Jalen Brunson. There's another guy I'm missing. All those guys will be kind of in that range, with the top 4 being in some order: Jokic, SGA, Luka, and Wemby. Assuming all those guys hit the 65 game mark, which I would imagine that they will. Donovan Mitchell's another guy that could get first team All NBA nod, and honestly, I don't think they'll give it to him because of the aspiration thing. But Kawhi Leonard's been really damn good this season. So yeah, that I think we both agree that like limiting Ant is the smart thing, but also like this All NBA stuff, while it's not directly financially tied to Ant's contract like it was in a previous season, I think it's still worthwhile to make sure that he's getting out there for those games, and I think that played a part in him coming back for this game instead of maybe the next one. I don't know.
Yeah, players are aware of it more than they let on. I mean, they'll be like, "Oh, I don't know anything about that," but I mean, they might say that, but they have people in their ear on their team, whether it's their agents or anything like that. I mean, there's people that know what's going on, so let's not be fooled about that. So, all right, so let's move on to the next topic here. The Wolves have a 103.9 defensive rating in the non-Rudy minutes since Kyle Anderson has been playing now in the lineup. So, our how or foul right here is the Wolves have solved their defensive issues with Rudy on the bench.
I'm going to say how, just because I think this was there when Rudy was on the bench 2 seasons ago when Kyle was on the roster. I think like this was clearly their answer, and they had Cat, who is a little bit more far more a traditional center than either Nas or Julius are. But like I think he's just kind of doing the same old stuff, for better or for worse, than he was back then. And I look at like the Wolves have 120 defensive rating in the Reed and Randall minutes when without Kyle, or that's all the non-Rudy minutes combined. So there's garbage time in there too, but like, so there's nearly 17 points better basically per 100 possessions when Kyle is on the floor without Rudy. Like that's a staggering amount. And I think on offense, it helps him. It doesn't help them too, but he's not, because they need like extra point guard minutes and he can give them that. I think that if they had Kyle Anderson this whole season, the non-Rudy minutes defensively would look a lot different, and that lineup offensively would have Kyle Anderson, Julius Randle, and Naz Reid would have some difficulties offensively too. But in terms of just like there are so many nights, if you remember, like just the defense when Rudy would sit was just impossible, and now it seems like, and it'll depend on matchups for the playoffs, how much Kyle plays. But like, I do think that they've found some sort of answer to those minutes with Kyle.
Yeah, I think Kyle definitely helps. You listed a lot of the numbers on that. But the reason I'm going foul for this, that the Wolves have solved their defensive issues with Rudy on the bench, is because I've just been so discouraged by how poorly Nas has looked. I mean, especially tonight on the defensive end. I mean, you're playing against, every kind of belabor, it's like a zombie G League version of the Mavs, and he was constantly kind of getting beat. I know at one point, Julius Randle, I think his third quarter, hit like a tough layup, and Nas just kind of jogs back on defense while a G League two-way player for the Mavs goes streaking down the floor off a made basket. And the Mavs just kind of transition, just kind of hit ahead to Nas's guy. He scores easy, a wide open dunk, and then Finch calls a timeout and just kind of glares at Nas the whole time. And that was just like one example. Nas got beat backdoor a lot. He's constantly getting lost. He was not getting back quickly. He was trying to kind of, I think, so focus on fixing his offensive issues out there. And so, again, I don't think that it's all is lost for Nas, but we also know he's not a plus defensive player generally. And plus, I mean, Julius was a little bit more encouraging tonight. I mean, he did have to handle that Cooper Flag assignment early, and he kind of stood him up. I mean, I think Julius traditionally has looked okay, like literal isolation one-on-one, like no screens, like just let me defend him one-on-one. Like he's looked good in those areas. But he still has a lot of lapses, not getting back, not boxing out, not rebounding, those type of things. And so, I mean, I think Rudy and Slowmore are great. I think the wings, for the most part, are good. But all it takes is one bad link to really ruin a defense. And, we've seen that happen before. And if Nas and or Julius is going to be out on the court, that's going to be a weak link that the offenses, especially in the playoffs with good teams, they're going to attack that. They're not going to get away with it by saying, oh, well, you're playing against the Dallas Mavericks, a tanking team, and you could just kind of like do whatever on defense and they're not going to score. Like, this is something that I'm still concerned about. So I do think that there's still a ways to go, but Kyle certainly helps. And maybe if you ramp up his minutes a little bit more, that will also help. But they really got to address this. They got to get through to Nas somehow. Maybe it's his injury or his health right now, but it's not looking good on his half.
Yeah, I would guess it's physical for Nas, especially because like his shoulder has given him such problems all season. Nothing that's like kept him out of the lineup, but just like nagging stuff. I know I can think about just times we go into the locker room post game and he's just like stretching out his shoulder,
wrapped up in
like
ice, every type of wrap,
like a relief pitcher in baseball or whatever. Like it's just clearly bothering him. So hopefully that's why the Wolves are going to make almost certainly going to make their fifth straight postseason. Well, the previous two that they made it in a top 6 seed, like they went to the West Finals, and the 2 times before that, when they came through the play-in tournament, they lost in the first round. I do think it's clear, like getting that week off for every team is unbelievably important, and Nas will be another guy to watch if like that week off. And obviously they're practicing, but that's not the same as travel and in basketball or whatever. But I think that week off will be really helpful for Nas, and because I mean he's had we know what he can look like in the postseason. That's pluses and minuses. So I mean I think in the short term, like Nas's game has been fairly worrying, but I'm not big picture. I think for me, I'm still not at the point of really being too worried about what he can look like in 2.5 weeks from now.
Yeah, it's going to be a rough end of the stretch for the Wolves for sure. I mean, you think about just schedule wise, even. I mean, regardless of rest. I mean, if we look ahead to next week, I mean, they have 4 games in, was it 6 nights, which is going to be rough. And then they just literally get 1 day off before they, play their final game. So you're looking really essentially within an 8-day stretch. They're playing 5 games in 8 nights. So they're not going to be able to just kind of rest on their laurels, especially with that Rockets game, their second to last game on April 10th. That's going to probably be the biggest game of their season for them in terms of seeding. So, getting healthy is going to have to be a priority for them, and whether that's limiting them or Nas has to sit out a little bit more, they have to consider that.
Yeah, and so they don't play Tuesday or Wednesday, so they get one last extra day off. But then it's like you mentioned, it's 7 games over 11 days to close out the season. Um, they they have 4 off days and 2 back to backs. Both of those like road back to back. So the schedule gets really tough here down the stretch, and mostly in terms of travel. The opponents are so kind of highs and lows of where you play Detroit, who's played pretty well even without getting Kate Cunningham, and then you have the worst team in the league, Indiana, on the schedule too. So it'll be an interesting close to the season in terms of the schedule. But let's move on to Apex Alpha. Leo, who is your leader of the pack this week?
Ryan, we've never done this before. I look back between all of when we started this podcast all the way till now, we've never had this. But for the first time ever, I'm going to have a 3-time Apex of the Alpha in a row, and that is Ayo Dosunmu. Only fitting for the man that got a triple double today to make it as my Apex Alpha for the 3rd time in a row. He was just anything you can say, like, did he do this? Yeah, he probably did that in this game. And yes, yeah, he did have to miss the Detroit game, but even, prior to that, I mean, like the last couple weeks, he's just been so awesome. I mean, you got to imagine the Wolves didn't think he was going to play this well starting in Ant's place. And even now today, I mean, this is starting next to Ant. So it's like you want him off the bench, he's going to do well. You want him starting by himself, he's going to do well. You start next to your star player, he's going to do well. So I think that's why we even had that question and discussion earlier about should he start over Dante. And again, it's to no fault of his own for how good he is on, maybe why Dante should still be starting. But Io, yeah, I think he was just plays like this no nonsense style of basketball. Like, yeah, he'll get hyped up, now and then, but I mean, he's not like a Bones or a Nas where he's not going to be like super flash. I mean, like the flashiest thing he'll do is take it coast to coast and like, under 2 seconds and lay it up through traffic. But aside from that, I mean, he's not hitting with like crazy, like, looping left and right crossovers or crazy step backs. Like he's like, like whatever you give me, like I'm going to take it. So yeah, shout out to Io. He is my Apex Alpha again.
Yeah, that's a good callback. That 3 straight Io Apex Alphas for you. He's been that good. I mean, this has been an A+ trade for the Wolves. It's not even to tear down like Rob Dillingham or Leonard Miller, both of which I think from the outside looking in, I think have had some solid games out there in Chicago. Maybe Leonard Miller more so than Rob, but it's the type of trade I like. The bar for the bar is high in terms of like best recent Timberwolves trade where they traded D'Lo for Nikhil, Mike Conley in 3 seconds. Like that's going to be all-timer Wolves trade. But like there's a good chance that this Ayo Dosunmu trade ends up being like the second of like maybe the post-pandemic Timberwolves trades. I'm trying to think what would be the next best Timberwolves trade behind the D'Lo for Nikhil trade.
It's not gonna be the Cat trade, but I mean, we'll have to see. I mean, there's still future draft picks of the Rudy trade.
But that's like so hard to. It's so hard to compare, like because like the Cat trade, like it's easy to compare, like when you're just acquiring a guy, like those are comparable trades. But yeah, comparing this to like the Julius and Cat trade is like that's. I mean, I think it's going to take a long time for us to figure out who quote unquote won that trade. It's going to be a while.
Yeah. Well, Ryan, who is your Apex Alpha this week?
I put Chris Finch just because there's a lot of narratives, right, going around with Chris Finch, and certainly I think we all can pinpoint certain aspects of the Timberwolves that like the coaching needs to do better there. And like I think I said in a pod like last week, like some of those performances where you just get blown out, like on that where they lose in Chicago, like I don't think like Chris Finch is to blame for those, but like like at a certain point you're the leader of the team, right? So there's a lot of stuff going around with that, and so I think he deserves a little bit of some flowers here, just with how the team has been playing recently. Ant goes down after the Oklahoma City game 2 weeks ago, and they play Phoenix, and like they needed to win that game. And so they go 4-2 without Ant, wins against Boston and Houston. Io didn't play in that Houston game either. Vibes in Houston are subpar. Good Lord, that game was weird. but to be able to go 4-2 without Ant, and to be on track for the 5th straight playoff season, basically unheard of certainly, obviously, other than the Kevin Garnett era, like that, just unheard of for the Wolves to be able to make it to the playoff 5 times in a row. And at a certain point, something I've been trying to, as I kind of get my quote unquote takes off about, like, I still kind of don't buy this team as like a win 3 straight or 4 straight playoff series type of team. I almost just kind of like I'm talking to we all got to do this, but myself, like, put that aside. At the end of the season, we can go back and retroactively kill him for this, that, or the other. But like at a certain point, like they're gonna go to the playoffs, and almost certainly they're gonna go up against either Luka Doncic and LeBron James or Nikola Jokic and the Nuggets. Like it's gonna, like, these are the type of playoff series for years we would have died for, even if like the Wolves don't come out on top. And so like I think that applies to Finch here, where it's like, yeah, could it be better? Do they need to get better? Like all that stuff is fair, but at a certain point, like the team just wins. Yeah, and so to do so without Ant, who obviously I think a lot of people point to, well, they win because of that guy. True, but they were able to win some tough games and do so in like different ways. Like the team had to, with the roster that they were able to put out there, like they had to kind of shapeshift into a whole different team for at least a week. So for them to, for the bottom not to fall out with Ant, I think Finch deserves some credit for that.
Yeah, I mean, how many fire Finch like chants has he had to endure on social media from fans who are upset because they're looking for someone to blame? And yeah, like you said, he continues to flex and show that he, like you said, different ways. I mean, 4-2 without Ant, is a great mark. And I think he's shown the ability to be able to kind of, I don't know. I mean, I think people blame him. I think he gets too much crap for the, well, he's not developing the young guys. Like, he should be playing like Yohan more. He should be playing, so-and-so more, where it's like, I get it. I mean, I feel that way sometimes as well, too. But I mean, like, he's getting wins and he is getting them to the playoffs. He's trying to manage egos. Again, we don't know shit as coaches, like, and what happens in the basketball team. Like, we're all just, yeah, we cover the team, and all that, but we're not in the weeds of it. We don't know what's going on behind it. And I only ever really heard anyone, you correct me if I'm wrong, Ryan, but like any players or former players that were like, oh man, like, I really didn't, like, I had issues with Finch, or I didn't like what was going on over there. I think I heard one like random murmur one time that KD didn't want to come to the Wolves last offseason because he didn't want to play for Chris Finch or something like that, which is like, okay, I don't know how much KD's word, even if he did say that, means. But yeah, so I think,
I mean, at this point, that's kind of
that's probably a plus,
kind
right?
of a feather in Finch's cap.
Good thing, yeah, that he didn't want him. So I think, like, yeah, with all that said, I mean, like, Finch has been a guy that players, like, they ride for. They ride for Finchy. Like, and I think that's big, and I think that says a lot. It's like you need to just be able to have a guy at the end of the day that your players will rally around. So yeah, I like that.
Absolutely. Leo, we'll move on. Prey of the week. Who do the Wolves make their prey?
I gotta go with Cooper Flag on this one. Cooper had a tough game here against the Wolves. I remember the last time that they played, Jaden McDaniels kind of harassed him out there on defense. I think he picked him at half court and just kind of dunked on the other side. Cooper today didn't have to deal with Jaden McDaniels, but he still finished as a game worst minus 35. He shot 5 of 19 from the field, 0 of 3 from 3, and I finished with just 12 points in 31 minutes on 19 shots, which is not good. But aside from him not playing well individually, on the offensive side of the court, he was on the receiving end of one of Ant's big dunks early. I mean, he kind of made a business decision where he didn't, like, jump up to try and, like, block it all the way, but he was in the picture. He left the ground, so he gets that. But I think the kind of cherry on top was Rudy Gobert on this wild first half sequence where, or it was maybe, I think it was second half or first half, where they're battling for a loose ball, and then Rudy's hand just goes like flying 360 in a fashion that only, I feel like, you would only see come from like a Lou Dort or Draymond Green, where he just goes like 360 full, like judo chops Cooper Flag in the face, like right on the nose. And the replay looks bad. As soon as it happened, I was like, oh my God, that is going to be unintentional flagrant one foul that's going to cost the Wolves 2 games of Rudy Gobert. Luckily, we had Courtney, like, no blood, no foul, Kirkland out there, who was like, nope, just play on. We're not even reviewing that. So Cooper kind of got the raw end of that deal. So that was tough. So, it was a tough night for Cooper out there, for himself and also just physically getting the punishment out. It was a rough night.
Yeah, for Flag, it's just like, I don't like these lineups they're throwing out there are not representative of like what competitive lineup is. So it's like when he has a bad night, he's shown flashes this year. I'm certainly willing to write it off as just like what is he supposed to do with the team that they're rolling out there? But maybe that's giving him too much slack. My play of the week were the Target Center rims. The Wolves threw up a bunch of bricks against the Pistons on Saturday. So I had to go with that just because the offense was rough on that night, and obviously there's reasons for that. Jaden, Ayo, and Ant all out, so that's a lot of offensive firepower that the Wolves didn't have. But against a really good defensive, extraordinarily good defensive team against Detroit, which obviously they're down Cade Cunningham, but like defensive wise, that's not that I couldn't tell you if Cade is a good or bad defender, but like certainly like it's much easier to fill his defensive role than it is his offensive role. So yeah, pretty brutal game, but not one that I'm willing to chastise the Wolves for. Just chalk it up as a brutal game and move on, I guess.
Yeah, you feel grateful that the Wolves aren't like the Dallas Mavericks where they have those mics on the rims there, so they really hear all those misses and bricks by the Wolves against the Pistons. But yeah, like you said, I mean, I went back and I watched the game and it looked like the Wolves weren't necessarily getting killed out there. They weren't outclassed. They were missing a ton of shots and they weren't playing well by any means. But it was just one of those off nights. Anytime it's like a morning game and they're not playing the Denver Nuggets, it's like I don't know about this one. So yeah, I feel you on that. So we'll move on to the playtime. Here where we're going to take a look at the standings and see where everything shakes out as we are just under 10 games left for the season. Most teams have anywhere from about 6 to 8 games left on their record. So Ryan, what are you looking at here in the standings?
Yeah, I mean I think the Jaden McDaniels news is a bummer in terms of like trying to catch the Lakers and Nuggets, who are currently the 3 and 4 seeds. And I tweeted this out today, and I kind of want people to like understand like the 3 and 4 seeds. Even I was kind of going to say this, even regardless of Jaden's injury, the 3 and the 4 seeds are kind of likely out of reach, even already, just based on because the Wolves don't have the tiebreakers. Like you have to fully pass these teams who are, in the Lakers' case, 3 games up on them. So Lakers win against Washington tonight. So if the Wolves want the 3 seed, they have to go 7-0 and have the Lakers go 3 and 4, which like either one of those necessarily could happen. The Lakers could sputter. Maybe the 7-0 for the Wolves seems a little bit given the schedule we talked about, but like that's a tough hill to climb. And so like to pass Denver, even if the Wolves go 6-1 down the stretch of the season, if Denver just goes 4-2, the Wolves won't have enough games to catch them, which I would guess like that'd be if you ask me how many of the Denver 6 games remaining, how many do you think they'll win? I'd probably guess 4. Which would if the Denver goes 4-2, the Wolves have to win out. So I think, especially given that the 3 seed, especially like maybe they can catch Denver, but like I'm extraordinarily dubious that they're going to be able to catch the Lakers. Like I think the Lakers are the 3 seed. They have the tiebreaker over the Nuggets too. So if that's the case, then you're fighting for 4, 5, 6, and unless the Houston can catch Denver, which I don't think is possible either, it basically comes down to, do you want to face Denver or the Lakers? And I think that's an interesting question, and one that if the Wolves want to jerry rig it or whatever, to like, they basically can wait until the second to last game of the season, because so they play Houston the second to last game of the season, which if they wanted to play the Lakers, they're going to need Houston to pass them. The interesting thing about that game is it decides the tiebreaker. So it's basically the game's already worth 2 games in the standings for related to Houston, because like one team wins, the other loses, versus the flip flop of that. Well, it's really worth 3 games because the tiebreaker gets settled on that outcome. So like if the Wolves basically if either team is within a game of each other, that game's going to decide the standings. So like if you get to that point and you go, maybe we want to dip to 6 to avoid Denver, you can do that. You can do that pretty easily and not have to like worry about, well, just keep winning games until then, and Houston will probably keep pace, and you can. I don't think they'll do this. I think they'll just try to win the game. But like if you're a fan trying to think about this stuff, that's what you can do. It's really a question of like, for me, I actually don't care if like the second round matchup is the Spurs or a Thunder, because I just kind of think if you're gonna whatever, if either of those teams don't make the finals, the team that does is going to go through both of them. So I don't really care what is their second round matchup. I would just be like, for me, it's like, which team would you rather face, the Nuggets or the Lakers? And even that is hard to answer, because if Aaron Gordon is out, I would totally rather play the Nuggets. And if the Nuggets are fully healthy, that completely changes everything.
We kind of talked about that last week, Ryan, about, which team we'd rather see between the Nuggets or the Lakers, even Houston. I think we both agree that, Houston would be the ideal matchup. But again, for that to happen, it's going to be really tough. I don't even know if that's realistic. I mean, anything's
the most realistic scenario for that is like Denver just goes on an absolute.
Yeah. So, we'll see what happens with that. But, granted that they're most likely not going to see Houston. Between Denver and LA, I would still probably see Denver. I feel like they're a little bit more familiar with that matchup, even though, yes, they did play the Lakers last year. But they've seemed to have a little bit more success against Denver. And I think, no one can solve the Jokic puzzle completely, but I like the Wolves' chances at it. As far as kind of what happens, like you said, in the second round, who knows? OKC just won in overtime against the Pistons, which is kind of a big win for them, because now OKC, I think, is 2.5 games up over the Spurs, even though the Spurs have the tiebreaker on them. But it's still very possible that the Spurs can mathematically get into it for the 1 seed. It's not super unrealistic. It's just maybe unlikely at this point. But if they do, then, that changes the calculus on, who you may want to see in the second round. And really at that point, like, I don't like going much further than that, because then it's like, now you're just projecting potential, like, makeup scenarios now of like what's going to happen. Well, if we win this and then they win that and then we get them, it's like, really it's going to come down to that first round. I would probably like to see Denver, but it's going to be tough either way, which is kind of what we were talking about earlier, where getting healthy and just being the best version of yourselves is going to be the most important thing, rather than trying to rig whatever first round matchup you want. Like, you need Nas to get back to, somewhat healthy. You need Jaden healthy and ready to play. You need Ant ready and healthy to play. Even Ayo, who's missed a couple games with his calf, you need him healthy as well too. So I think that should be priority number one. And then after that is like, all right, whatever, because it's very, very unlikely that they fall into the play in. But yeah, I think either one, I'll gladly accept whatever fate that is, as long as the Wolves are somewhat healthy and have some form of momentum going in their favor into the playoffs.
Yeah, I don't think the Wolves should, or they should try to, when we get to that Houston game, they shouldn't try to like tank it, even if they do really like a Lakers matchup. But I think going back to our end discussion in the minutes, it does. I think if there was a 3 seed to chase, I think it makes sense to like really go full bore to try to win these games, get up to the 3 seed, especially if Houston was your prize there. I think that would make a ton of sense, assuming like whoever gets the Rockets, I think, in the first round of if it's the Lakers or the Nuggets, I think are going to have a really big advantage. Just because I don't really believe in that Houston team. So if that was available, then I think it would make sense to go. But like, if you're really deciding between 4, 5, 6, again, not to say they should lose games, but I think the priority then shifts to let's make sure we're healthy, get Ant his All-NBA slot. But there's no need to push it beyond that, while still like integrating people coming off injuries and still playing well. But like this is mostly like almost from a fan perspective. Like, there's a good chance. Again, it depends on like Denver's injury report. Like, there's a good chance that in that Rockets game, I'm kind of half cheering for a loss there, just to dip down to 6, which might find some easier matchups. But I think important to remember, like we all remember 2 years ago, we were all so terrified of the Suns because of the regular season, right, and the Wolves swept them out of the playoffs. And even last year, I think all of us were like, I'd much rather play Denver than Houston. I think we were all, or Denver than the Lakers. We were all in that boat. And that was just like clearly wrong. The Lakers were that last season a much better matchup. And Yeah, I don't think the Wolves certainly don't make the West Finals if they had gotten up to 5 seed to play Denver. So, I'm more hesitant to really stake my claim on. I want the Wolves to play X team in the first round. I just think it's it's going to shake out how it shakes out, and I think again a discussion for the offseason with how the Wolves have played this season. The damage has been done. I think we can do the postmortem later about this team should have been the 3 seed. I think that is clear, and it might cost them. I don't know. Maybe it'll cost them a trip to the West Finals. Maybe it'll cost them a trip to the second. I don't know. We'll see. Maybe they go on another run again and make it all that matter. But yeah, that's just kind of where I've been thinking about the standings. As we're getting down to the point where you can really start to map this sort of stuff out.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, we'll see what happens. There's still we're not at the point of the season now where it's all kind of locked in yet, so there's still a lot of potential outcomes on the table. But yeah, you can kind of see the vision.
Yep, and the Wolves first and why they need to keep winning games is they have a 4-game lead over Houston or over Phoenix, excuse me. And when that clinches, they will clinch a playoff spot, a top 6 seed. So their magic number, which would, if people are familiar with that phrase, which is your wins plus the team behind you's losses to clinch keeping above them in the standings. So the Wolves' magic number is 4. Yes, so there's 7 games left. So if you win 4 and lose 3, yep, Phoenix can't catch you. So combined 4 wins and Suns losses clinches a playoff spot for you, and the Clippers are in there too. But I don't think the Clippers, that magic number might be 1 at this point, or the Wolves can't. Never mind, they've already clinched over the Clippers. So yeah, that'll be the next thing, is the Wolves clinching a playoff spot, and after that, if we as fans try to finagle what playoff spot we want, we can talk about it then. But Leo, let's close out with 2 words. What are your 2 words for this week in the Wolves?
Iowa Wolves. Our podcast this isn't 2 words Timberwolves pod. This is 2 words Wolves pod. That includes the Iowa Wolves a little bit. So, the Iowa Wolves are heading to the playoffs for the first time in 11 years. The first time since they've been the Iowa Wolves. They were the Iowa Energy before. Fun fact: they have one G League title, or back that was D League title back in the day. But they're going to be playing the first round. In the first round, 1 game. Single elimination against the reigning champion Stockton Kings. So my Stockton Kings, as one could say, they'll be playing them on Wednesday, April 1st at 8:30 p.m. Central on Prime. I'm going to be putting out a piece tomorrow. By the time you're watching this, this morning, Tuesday morning on Canasupis, where I'll be detailing that matchup and also just kind of doing a recap of how the whole Iowa Wolves season has been going. But let's just say I like their chances in the first round against the Kings. So make sure you tune in for that. Iowa Wolves, I mean, it's their playoffs starting this week.
Awesome. Yeah, go check out Leo's Iowa Wolves coverage. Can't say that I've been following them much this year. I do know I spoke with Rocco Sikarsky a little bit when he was up with the big team, and he was talking about just their chances. And I think one thing I was kind of impressed by was he was really he wanted to make the playoffs with that team. The wins and losses were important to him, which I think is a good sign for a player like that. I think it'd be very easy to go down to Iowa. You're worried about your own numbers. You're worried about how can I get up with the big team, which for Rocco, I'm sure he understood his full season was going to be spent down there. I think it was a good sign for him to really it was important to him to make the playoffs and win games with Iowa down there. Hopefully that speaks well to his future with the Timberwolves. But my 2 words are biding time. Like I said, because I don't forecast them getting up to the 3 seed. For me, it's just kind of a little bit of a waiting game. We got 19 days into the playoffs, and that's when the season is going to come to a head. Whether I think they've already kind of clinched a subpar regular season, at least by the standards I set for them. That's kind of, they're already well on their way to doing that. But ultimately, none of that's going to matter if they, even if they, it's you win game 1 and all of that goes away. Or lose game 1 and 2, and now all of that comes right back up. So The playoffs are always fun. If they're also a little nerve wracking as well too. And yeah, that's kind of what I'm looking forward to now, and while trying not to overlook the rest of the schedule here.
Yeah, there's always a little bit of like, I don't want to say relief, but like when the playoffs start, it's like, okay, cool. That means the season didn't go completely haywire. We're like in the play in and we
Mhm.
missed the playoffs. I would never take making the playoffs for granted. Anyone that's been a longstanding Timberwolves fan should not. But at the same time, I mean, there's always that small percent outcome that the Wolves and the players and Anthony Edwards, Julius Randle have, they've said this like, oh, they're playing like they're waiting for the playoffs. Like they're just waiting for the playoffs to start. It's like, all right, well, playoffs here now. Like so you
Mhm.
like there's no more time for you to be like, all right, well, we're not getting up for this game, or this, that, or the other. So there's always that percent chance that like last season, that's when the Wolves really turn up. And obviously last year they had a really great stretch to end the season. You hope that in the last however many games the Wolves have now, the 7 games or whatnot, that they really take them seriously and use that same momentum to kind of launch them into the playoffs. Hopefully not against the Lakers. If it is the Lakers, hopefully do the same thing to them and gentlemen sweep them again.
Mhm.
But we'll see what happens. Yeah, it is exciting because that's really what, I don't want to say all that matters in the season, but I mean, that is what a lot of us have been waiting for, maybe players included.
Absolutely, and I think we all can't wait to get there. But got some steps along the way, including back to back on Thursday and Friday for the Wolves. The first one in Detroit and the second one in Philly. 2 matchups against teams that injury reports will play a big factor, especially for Philly, who knows what that team's been dealing with a lot of stuff this year and the past couple of years. So I guess we'll see. But for Leo, I'm Ryan. Thank you everyone for listening.
Get home, drive safe.
Go Wolves.
Ayo!